As luck would have it, when I initiated my phone call to Lynn, none other than Hall of Famer Dot Wilkinson gave her a call. And so I'm going to give you the uncut version because it's adorable, and then we'll start the interview.
Because I'm in the middle of doing a radio interview about Bright Lights of Summer. I am. Would you like to, I'm going to put you on speaker, so it's going to be a little harder for you to hear me. Yeah, that would be good if you would be careful what you say.
Tell her I can take anything out if she doesn't want it in there.
Okay, so Dot, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, so say hello to the folks at home.
Say hello to who?
Everybody out there, say hello to the folks at home.
Hi.
Evening to everybody.
There you go. Your timing is awesome. I knew you were going to...
I know. I don't know what I'm doing talking to you right now.
Yeah, well, it's
I just walked by the phone and I just pushed number 7 and there you were.
Lucky number 7.
With the Bright Lights of Summer.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay.
I love that I'm lucky number 7. Okay, so...
I had a special occasion for you today. I had a snake this morning.
Oh, for God's sake, don't tell me that. You know better than to tell me that.
I'll tell you all about it tomorrow.
Don't tell me about it tomorrow, and don't hang it on the tree where I can see it. Was it a rattlesnake?
What?
It wasn't a rattlesnake, was it?
I don't know what it was. I called somebody to come and get it.
Yeah.
And by that... It was gone.
Thank God. Well, where did it...
I don't know what it was. It wasn't very big, but Millie found it.
Yeah.
She saw it out there, and I screamed at her, "Get in here!"
That dog sees everything.
And I don't know what it was. It wasn't very big. It's about maybe 1.5 foot long or something. I don't know. Or bigger. I don't know.
It was outside, right? Not inside the house.
Right outside the patio.
Yeah. So what you're telling me is, when I show up tomorrow, it could be in the house, and we wouldn't know it.
I tried to catch it to save it for you, but
because you know how much I love that kind of thing.
I know how much you love the outdoors and the people.
So are you like Indiana Jones? You don't like snakes?
I'm trying to catch it for you,
No.
but that's the way it goes.
Well,
I'm getting ready to go take my dog for a walk.
Take the dog for a walk.
Get on with your interview.
Well, I'm glad you showed up in time to say hello to everybody. That's fantastic. I will. On a personal note, I will let you know what time I'm going to be there tomorrow. I sent a text, and I haven't heard back yet.
Okay.
Okay. But for the record, for everybody here, I will say right out loud, like I tell you every day, I love you to pieces, sweetheart. Oh,
you
good.
take care, and I'll see you tomorrow, huh?
Okay, sweetie. I'll see you tomorrow. And for God's sake, don't catch the snake. And if you do...
I would do that to you. You know that.
The hell you wouldn't.
I think to scare you with a snake.
The hell you wouldn't.
If I could catch it, I'd hang it up out here for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I tried to catch a gopher last night, Marianne and I did, but we didn't catch it. So
well, I'm so
I have
sorry.
to hang up for you.
Yeah, gee, I'm so sorry for that.
Okay.
All right, sweetie.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Stay out of trouble, will you?
Are Karen and Neil to go out with us tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Stay out of trouble. I'll call you later and I'll tell you what time, all right?
Okay, I'm just going to go for a walk and I'll be back.
All right, I love you.
Oh, okay.
Don't pick up anybody in the neighborhood.
I'll try not.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye. Well, that was special. A little extra added bonus for you.
That was really cool.
And I usually would do that because I talk to Dot every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And we hadn't talked yet today. I was holding off because every week we go to lunch. And most weeks we go to lunch with a couple named Nelda Majors and Karen Bailey. You might recognize their names because they were the lead plaintiffs in the Arizona marriage equality case.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Very beautiful couple. They've been together 58 years. And they're very dear friends of ours. And so pretty much every week we all go out to lunch. And I haven't heard yet from Karen and Nelda what time lunch is tomorrow or where we're going. So I pick up Dot, and I bring Dot wherever we're going.
Mm-hmm.
So not having heard, I knew that Dot would be calling any second to try to figure out what the hell time I was going to be at her door tomorrow. And as for the snake, oh my God, this woman, she knows that I don't really care much for critters. And I particularly don't care for dead critters. I prefer them alive. And she, every now and again, catches a gopher in her pool. And just to terrorize me, she, bags it up and hangs it on a tree near where I park my car. She has a very wicked sense of humor. And she does it just because she knows it bothers me. So if she could have caught that snake today, I guarantee you she would have caught that snake and no doubt would have hung it someplace where she could watch my face when I saw it.
she was like Ashton Kutcher before his time.
Totally.
Punked. Totally. Dot as the host of Punked. Oh my goodness. Do you know what was really funny as I was finishing reading up your book? Today is April Fool's, folks. And April Fool's actually plays a very instrumental, special moment in the book. And I was just like, shut the front door. How is it that we got something that is so in sync with the day that we're actually recording, which isn't odd. For those who don't know, Lynn has abilities.
Yes, I do.
As do I, but not as snappy as hers. But you remind me of...
It's not a contest, honey.
I know. No,
not a contest.
No. And my co-author, Sheila Powell, is a psychic medium, and we joke about our brainstorming sessions, and one of our characters is very similar to her, and she shows up at her friend's office, and she's like, I was just calling you, but apparently the think then poof method works better than technology.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm just starting to call you, and then Dot walks by her phone and said, this is the moment.
I should call Lynn. Yeah, it's about the time I should talk to Lynn. And you know what? It's funny because for half an hour now, I've been thinking, wouldn't it be so cool if Dot called in the middle of the interview and I could get her recorded for everybody to hear? And lo and behold, she shows up. Thank you, angels, for arranging that. I really appreciate that. There are no coincidences. You've heard me say this many, many times, I know. Mm-hmm. There really are no coincidences. And so the fact that there was an April Fool's tie-in is not a coincidence, darling.
No, as I read it, because you and I have had interview time and in-person knowing time, that I was like, this was all meant to be because... I was just contacting you. I was like, is there any day in this particular week that works for you? And you wrote back, and I was like, okay. And it didn't hit me that it was April 1st as an April Fool's. I just like, okay, I'll put it in my phone. And then yesterday when I was asking people if they had any questions for you, I was like, and no jokes or silliness. Actually, I tried shenanigans, but my...
How did that autocorrect too?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. I feel like on my computer that sometimes my spell check shows a lack of imagination. Uh-huh. And I tried misspelling it in more phonetic ways to see if it would pick it up, but no, it didn't. So
it didn't.
I copped out. I copped out and said silly nonsense or something along those ways, but shenanigans was really what I was shooting for.
Two ends in the middle is the answer to that.
That sounds so mystical when the two ends in the middle.
It does. Two ends in the middle.
when the eagle flies.
Yeah, exactly. Or the hummingbird sings, you'll know. On the third dawn of the fourth day.
And the seventh seal.
Of the seventh sun.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Listeners, the woman who was on the phone briefly with us happens to be Hall of Famer Dot Wilkinson.
Dot Wilkinson.
Wilkinson. Oh, I missed the syllable.
It's okay.
And so you have this book, Bright Lights of Summer, which felt very much like what I imagine your relationship with Dot may have been like. is like
present tense. She's still here, honey.
Oh no, but I was thinking
93 years young and sharper than you and me together, as you can see.
Well, no, actually, I was more thinking of you wouldn't be recording her at this point; you'd be just buddies. Whereas,
I mean, we're family.
Exactly.
We're family.
Yes.
And, no, I don't record her anymore. We just have a grand old time. She is my best. I was going to say pimp, but perhaps I should say bookseller instead. She loves to send Bright Lights of Summer to all the people she cares about.
Mm-hmm.
So she keeps getting copies from me, and, I sign them, she signs them, we send them off to whoever it is she's thinking about today, who she thinks might like the book.
Mm-hmm.
So the book's gone everywhere among every ball player you can imagine, and all of her relatives have read it, and it's really kind of sweet. It's really, really sweet, actually. I'm so touched and so very relieved and pleased that she loves the book. She's actually read it a bunch of times now. As I talk to her every day, she's always got a book going now, and she tells me that she never read a book. She didn't like to read because she didn't have a lot of time for it in her life. And so she never really sat down to read a book until she read Eyes on the Stars when I first met her. And she's been reading ever since. She's got a voracious book appetite now that I'm in charge of feeding, apparently.
Well, there's no better guardian of that.
Yeah.
You know what? Am I remembering correctly that she was also signing a great deal of softballs for?
She was. I had this harebrained scheme. It's not really a scheme. I had an idea, a notion, a little more than a year ago, almost a year and a half ago now. That we could do a really good thing and raise a lot of money for a cause or two that we both cared about by having Dot sign softballs. And, in my mind's eye, I thought, well, maybe 20 or 30 people will want these softballs, and, it'll be a nice little donation, and we'll sell them for $20 a piece with Dot's autograph, and we'll sell them, and we'll take the money, and we'll donate it to hospice and to the American Diabetes Association. And so I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I'll get this done. It'll be, if Dot will agree to it, it'll be a really nice thing to do. Her partner of 48 years, Ricky Cato, was well cared for by hospice when she was dying 4 years ago. And my mom, of course, was well cared for by hospice when she died 20 years ago. So we both have this connection to hospice. Ricky also had diabetes. My dad had diabetes. There were all these tie-ins, and we thought, well, this would be a really nice thing to do. Dot was very willing to do it. She couldn't imagine that anybody would care about her autograph or want it, which I found remarkable. She's so humble, and that's one of the reasons why we get along so very well. Neither one of us is allowed to get too big for our britches, because the other one of us will put us in our place.
I like that. Sorry to interrupt briefly, but there's one person that pops into mind with that, and it's Lee Lynch. She's got to be the kindest, most gentle and supportive person I've ever met. I mean, and she makes me feel special every time she sees me or does something with me, like I'm the show. I'm like, no. Well,
this makes Lee Lynch makes everybody feel special. I mean, that's just the kind of person she is, and she's a trailblazer. We know that she's a literary trailblazer. She's a trailblazer for gays and lesbians everywhere. And, Dot is the same way.
Exactly.
She's got the same kind of mindset. She really does. And it's so wonderful to be around. So I thought we would sell, maybe 20 or 30 balls. Well, it ended up taking over both of our lives for the better part of, 90 days. It turned out to be 108 balls.
Oh!
She signed 108 balls, and we ended up donating well over $3,000. And it was just such a beautiful thing. And between the softballs that we did, and then we were doing this huge event on September 20th, was the basis for the documentary I know we're going to talk about a little bit later, Extra Innings. And I said, Dot, she's so willing to do anything I sign her up for. I always ask, but she's like, I'll do anything you want. And I said, well, be careful what you wish for. So I said, well, would you be willing to sit down and have lunch with a couple people if we, did it for charity and we raised some money? I don't know how much we'll get. I don't know who wants to have lunch with us. And we won't tell them that we'd have lunch with them for free, which we probably would. But, let's see what happens. And so this was after we finished with the softballs, right? Mm-hmm. So I put it out there on Facebook, not having any idea how this thing would go. And that one was for the American Diabetes Association. And it ended up that we raised $2,000 for lunch with me and Dot. It was $2,000 for lunch with me and Dot prior to the September 20th event that I had set up for here. Mm-hmm. Because Dot doesn't travel anymore. And I know you're going to ask me about this at some point. So here, let me help out. You didn't want to ask a question here, did you?
No, I don't do that. That's not me. I'm too shy.
Yeah, well, I know. Well, let me just get this out, and then we'll go. I promise we'll go wherever you want to go.
Okay.
I'll let you steer the ship. I will. Dot doesn't travel anymore, and all these people, when we were doing the softball signing benefit, kept saying how much they really wish they could meet Dot. And, I talk a lot on Facebook about Dot and my relationship with her, and, I tell stories, and everybody seems to love those stories, except for maybe Dot, who thinks I'm getting her in trouble. If you get me in trouble with all those girls, she says. I said, yes, as if you mind that they all have a crush on you. So I went on Facebook, we were talking about it, and we had done the softball benefit, and I thought, all these people want to meet Dot, but Dot doesn't travel anymore. So what would happen if I brought the world to Dot instead? Mm-hmm. And that was, thus was born this idea to do this huge event on which we did September 20th of last year, 2014, at the Phoenix Public Library. I set it up, and I interviewed Dot for 2 hours. I sat there and interviewed her, and we filmed it for documentary purposes. Now, recognize that in her entire life, Dot has been interviewed millions of times. She was in more magazines than you can count. She's in a 1960 edition of Sports Illustrated where they call her the female Yogi Berra.
Wow.
She's in Women's Sport magazine in 1970 as an icon. She's been in so many newspapers and so many magazines and on so many shows, but never, ever has Dot talked extensively about her private life. She's never talked about her sexuality. She's never talked about, what it was like to be, gay growing up, playing softball in the 40s and 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. She's never talked about that side of her life, and she's never gone in depth about the game or any part of her life, really. But because it was me and because we have this extraordinary relationship, she trusted me to do this with her in front of a live audience. And for posterity as a documentary. And so I felt so privileged and so very, very grateful to do it. And we did it on September 20th. So I knew that, this was the one chance I would get to be able to auction off a lunch with Dot. Mm-hmm. And so we did. So I went on Facebook and I created this flash auction for a lunch with me and Dot to precede the interview on September 20th that we were doing. And, I didn't know how it would turn out. You never really do. I figured maybe there'd be crickets in the room and nobody would want to bid on something like that. But this incredible thing happened, and all these people started a bidding war, and it was really something. And in the end, the high bid was $2,000 for lunch with me and Dot on September 20th. And so we paid up. We had lunch with a lovely couple from California, and we had a lovely lunch, and the American Diabetes Association got $2,000 out of the deal, which was really nice to be able to do.
No, I feel you on that. I love when there are opportunities to touch the lives of others, and these kind of charity donations not only keeps history out there and people's eyes open, and maybe they never would have known about Dot without you, and that enriches their lives. And I'm doing this anthology where we're going to donate to Sage and to GLARP, which is like the AARP for gay folks, and the anthology.
We have our own AARP?
Yeah, there's a gay, GLARP is the name of them, and they're creating this really great living space for LGBT seniors, including things to help folks who have memory difficulties, assisted living, and a lot of different activities. And I was like, woo, because the anthology that is on romance, historical romance, and we felt that, and I know this, that a lot of times, seniors are invisible or they have no one to care for them. And when it comes to the LGBT folks, many of them have been disowned. So the need for support for our seniors is very big. And so that's why it attracted me. And, I feel the same way about like your fundraising efforts for both hospice and diabetes.
Yeah. Well, good for you. You're doing a great thing. I'm glad you're doing that. It was originally I had gotten to editors, and Sachi Green had said, "Is this going to be for charity?" And I was like, it didn't occur to me. And then I did a lot of research, and I was specifically looking for organizations that do direct services for seniors rather than, not that political organizations aren't very, very important, but I wanted, an organization that gives as much money as possible to things that directly impact the lives of seniors. And that's the reason why I chose the ones that I did. Sounds like it's a brilliant choice. Well done.
I know. I'm excited. Yeah. And my graphic designer, who's also one of the editors, is donating her services. So what I would normally pay her, I'd be sending to the organizations.
Excellent.
So that's really rad. I want to pull us back in. I love when you reining us in. One of the rad things I was thinking about this evening, and having Dot on is just totally awesome, and is that this is the most thematic interview I've ever done. I've done more than one book. I've talked to people about series, but the things that we're talking about are The Bright Lights of Summer, which is the novel, Digging for Home, which is a wicked funny book written by Parker and Dixie Ames with the help.
My kids are brilliant.
And Lucy McMahon.
And Lucy McMahon West
is a good-looking husky, I have to say.
That girl is a good-looking husky. Although she's always up to trouble, that girl.
I like the cone of shame.
That girl is always up to something.
But it was funny. I know they might take my lesbian card back, but I don't know much about softball. So I was reading it. I was like, oh, is that what that is? Huh.
You were reading Digging for Home, and you were learning about softball from my dogs. Well done.
Yes, your dogs.
I like that.
Yeah, they were teaching me a lot because what I loved about the book is that it would be super awesome for early readers.
Yes.
To take a check out of. And also, they do historical units, I guess in the 3rd and 4th grade. That could be interesting also for, the Dot part of it. But the reason why I dug it is that it combined information with humor.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting because I'm like, oh, that's going to stick in my head. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember about painting the corners or a snow cone.
Well, the thing about Digging for Home is it's a fully illustrated, really funny, beautiful little 52-page book that is completely done from the dog's point of view. And it is funny. It is accurate, by the way. Everything that's in there is true from a dog's perspective, but it is appropriate. There's nothing lesbian in that book. There's not a single thing in there. And it's actually, I would love to see that book be sold in pet stores and, from breeders and things like that. I see a much bigger life for that book. It is, really cute and perfect. And, it's appropriate for a 5-year-old.
Also, the first chapter of the book of Bright Lights of Summer, if I'm remembering quickly, it's like this peppy little 12-year-old who's totally excited. And I was like, this would be great for peppy little 12-year-olds who are so excited.
About softball, yeah. I mean, that first chapter that's in the back of Digging for Home, I wanted to give you a little taste of Bright Lights of Summer long before it came out. And in fact, if you read that chapter and then read the book, you'll see that the book changed over time. And the chapter that's in that book is not quite, is written a little bit differently in the actual book. But, there's nothing lesbian in that chapter either. It takes place in 1938. And at the time, Diz, the main character, is, she's a little 13-year-old girl or 12 or 13, and she is completely excited about, going to New York City with the Phoenix Ramblers softball team and helping them out. Her sister plays on the team. And, that first chapter, here's a little segue for you, that first chapter actually arose out of one of my forays into Dot's collection of memorabilia. Dot has more stuff in her house than any museum you will ever find. She has everything. And so when I was researching the book, we were looking through all of her pictures and newspaper articles and all of her equipment and everything. And I'm telling you, she is in several halls of fame, including the National Softball Hall of Fame, the Arizona State Softball Hall of Fame, the National Bowling Hall of Fame. And her stuff is all there, but she has so much more. And in fact, I have talked her into allowing me to try to present some of that stuff to the Smithsonian and to the National Museum of Women's History and to the Lesbian Her Story Archives in LA and in New York, which is great, fantastic. But she thinks it's junk. Me, it's history. But on one of these forays through her books, I came across this picture, this incredible image, and she was just going to gloss past it. And I put my hand on hers and I said, "Stop right there." And she said, "Well, what?" And I said, "That's you with the Rockettes on the roof of Radio City Music Hall." And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "When were you in New York with the Rockettes on the roof of Radio City Music Hall?" She said, "Oh, well, that was 1938, and we went to New York to play 2 games at Madison Square Garden." I said, "You played 2 games of softball in Madison Square Garden?" "Yeah." And then we went to City Hall. We met Fiorello LaGuardia's, people, and we went and we toured the grounds of the World's Fair, which was just being built for 1939. And we went to Jack Dempsey's restaurant. And we met Jack Dempsey, and he ate with us. And she's telling me this whole remarkable, incredible story. And my jaw is just hanging open. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, who would believe this? They played those 2 games in New York. They played against a team called the New York Roverettes on a terrazzo floor, which is wood. She'd never played on a wood floor before, so they wore sneakers instead of cleats, because normally they wore metal cleats. And they drew, the first night they played, they drew a crowd of 12,500 people to see a softball game in 1938 between the Phoenix Ramblers and the New York Roverettes. And then the next night they played again, and they drew a crowd of 13,500, the largest crowd ever to see a softball game indoors anywhere. And I think that is still true. They played an 18-inning game, a normal game for you whose lesbian card has now been revoked. There are usually 7 innings in a women's softball game. They played 18 innings.
I thought that was odd. I was like, huh.
Yeah, it was tied. So they played like forever and ever until somebody won. But it was just this remarkable moment in time captured in this picture that she had in her house. And I knew that I was going to start Bright Lights of Summer after the Ramblers had won the 1940 championship, which is real. Every event in that book, apart from the fictional characters, Diz and Franny, is real. Even every box score, everything that happened in a game, if my characters, Diz and Franny, didn't do it, then I am telling you the exact truth about how it happened. And so this 1938 thing, I knew it had to fit in the book somehow, even though I was starting the book in 1941. So I made it the first chapter, and the first chapter begins in 1938 with this event where Diz, my fictional character, is going with Dot and the Ramblers to New York, to Madison Square Garden, because I really thought it was such an extraordinary story that's been lost to history over the years. And I really wanted people to take note of it and remember that it happened, because it really did.
One of the things that struck me as I was reading this is I'm not yet 40. I can't remember my childhood.
I don't want to tell you the thought that just crossed my mind when you said that.
Okay. And the reason why I mention that is because I can't even really tell you the names of people I went to college with. And this story, Diz is relating all these amazing events. And when I read your prologue or your author's note where you mentioned everything that happened, even the ways the games played out were real. And I was like, oh my God, this world would be an awful place. I wouldn't be able to share all these amazing experiences because they would have flown right over my head. So I'm like, thank God there are some people out there with phenomenal memories who can share these things. And I feel that women's history is so sparse, even though our environment, the things that we've done have not been like, oh, there's this couple and this guy is a genius and he's figured out all these scientifically magical things. Oh, and his wife happens to be a scientist too. And I was like, how many times are we, touting some amazing inventor or scientist when they stole it from a woman?
Yeah. Well, it happens often, unfortunately. And, I love, there's a website called A Mighty Girl. You're familiar with it?
No.
I love this. You can find it on Facebook. It's called A Mighty Girl. And I love it because it brings back all these pieces of history that belong to women. And it gives you all kinds of resources. At the end of every story, it gives you all kinds of resources where to find out more about this event in history and this woman. And it's really empowering and very good for kids, I think. It would be great in a school environment. I'd love to see that. But it's really kind of a cool site. But you're right. I mean, the fact of the matter is all this stuff would be completely lost to history if not for people like Dot, who remembers, and me, who's willing to sit there and take all that in and find a vehicle to give it back out. To me, it was such an important project. This was such a labor of love and such an important project. First is a labor of love because of how I feel about Dot and how she feels about me. And secondly, it was so important to me to capture this time in history that was so amazing and wonderful, and about which so little is really known and understood. All anybody knows is the movie A League of Their Own, which was mostly accurate for what it was, but the truth of the matter is that movie and that league was the smallest part of what was going on in women's softball at the time. And that was part of the reason why I told the story in Bright Lights of Summer the way I did, was to let people really understand what the world of softball was like, and that was just a small piece of it. And by the way, a very prescribed piece of it, if you will. In other words, the women in that league had to live under very strict rules and guidelines because, God forbid, anyone should know they were lesbians.
Is there I'm sorry. Is there something in the background going on in your space?
Yeah. Do you want to know what that is?
What is it?
That's Dixie chewing a bone.
Okay. All right. I just wanted.
Dixie has a bone to pick with you. Apparently, Dix. It's enough, honey.
I just was asking. Actually, my first interview with Trinity Tam and Nell Stark included Merlin, their not Pitbull.
Merlin is
Bulldog.
Yeah, Bulldog.
And he was eating a bone, and the reason why is that, like, if we had tried to keep him separate from us, he would be fretting.
Yes.
So it was best just to let him be there. So when I started the interview, I was just like, okay, just so everybody knows, Merlin's here, and he's going to share his point of view here and there. If you hear anything in the background, that's what it is.
Yeah, well, that was Dixie. It was Parker before Dixie, but Parker finished with the bone and went off, and Dixie picked up they think it's about them anyway, because, we are talking about a little digging for home, and so they feel it necessary to, include their own point of view.
I want to talk a little bit more about. I feel like, and you probably feel the same way. I feel like the work that you've done with Dot, and getting the documentary, but also going through her things and listening to her stories, is like one of the more meaningful things or ways that you can spend your time in your life. I think.
Well, you know what? I mean, the stories are remarkable. They really are. And, her viewpoint is remarkable to me. And, I was a history major in college anyway. So to me, history is sacred. And to sit and chat about, the players and the times and the things they did and all that surrounded the game, not just the game itself, but everything that surrounded it, which is far more interesting, is just, it's a gold mine. I am so grateful for the opportunity. People seem to think that I'm doing some great public service by bringing Dot to light and hanging with her. And in truth, I feel like I'm the one who's being blessed here. And
Yeah.
Dot and I go back and forth about this all the time. We argue about this all the time. No, Dot seems to be of the notion, which is not at all true, that if it were not for me, people wouldn't know who she was. I mean, everybody knew who Dot was long before I ever came along. But she seems to think that I have raised her profile somehow, and I, on the other hand, I'm saying, she has enriched my life in so many ways for opening, this entire historical world to me, and everything that goes along with it, and beyond that. And this is very, very important to Dot. And so because it's important to her, it's important to me. She is just the most fabulous, warm-hearted, big-hearted human being I know. And so, for Dot, she and I talk about a lot of things. And as you brought up at the top of the show, I am a clairvoyant, a psychic, a medium, all that. Dot and I talk about that sometimes, too. And I am always kidding her that when she goes, because we talk quite freely about death because it's on her mind. She's 93 and in great health, but, she's not going to live forever. And because Ricky is gone as well, we talk about Ricky. We talk about all her friends are dying all around her. She's lost 3, in fact, of her ball players in the last few weeks, and it's been very, very difficult for her. But we talk openly about it, and I think it's a great relief to her to have someone like me who is not afraid of death and is, perfectly willing to talk about it and to talk to her about what the experience is like once you're old, once you're gone, once you've crossed over. But one of the, and I always tell Dot that everybody goes to their own funeral. So if you think that you're not going to go to your own funeral, I got news for you, sweetheart. You'll be there standing over my shoulder as I, say my eulogy for you, and I'm sure you'll be critiquing me all along the way. Please don't take a baseball bat with you when you go.
No snakes either.
What was that?
No snakes either.
No snakes and no gophers.
And no gophers.
No gophers, no snakes, no baseball bats. I've got my rules. But one thing that Dot is very, very adamant about is she really, really wants to be known not just as a great ball player, but as a great person. That's what she strives to be. And she certainly is. I mean, she is just one of the finest human beings. And I am so truly grateful to have her in my life. It's made such an impact on me. I've made an impact on her life, but she has made such an impact on mine. And, it's such a beautiful thing. And I know that when it comes time and when I am standing there giving her eulogy, I promise you that I will talk not so much about Dot the ball player, but about Dot the woman, Dot the woman I know. The kind, generous, incredibly funny, warm person.
The thing that I'm seeing as you talk about that, because I get little video clips, is I just pictured a very young girl in a museum, which obviously they have things blocked off by plexiglass, and touching the glass and looking at the glove, that kind of thing. And those are those special moments by you're creating space and going to the Smithsonian and talking to different people and going through her things and maybe even doing exhibitions. That little girl is going to see something and maybe see something that she can be and do in her life. And I think that's beautiful.
I agree with you. I mean, Dot's life is so empowering. The things that she did were things that most women never did. I mean, she never got married. She was, who she was all along. She didn't talk about it, but it didn't change who she was. She didn't come out until Ricky's obituary 4 years ago, and now she doesn't care who knows, frankly, which is really kind of funny. She's such a role model for the way she lived her life. She went into business with her coach, Ford Hoffman. She went into the real estate business because after he came out of the service after World War II, he went into real estate and she went to work for him. And I mean, she and Ricky together had this business where they would buy up a lot of houses, fix them all themselves. Everything in the house they would fix, the plumbing, the roofs, the structure, all of it they would do themselves at a time when women didn't do that. And they would do it themselves, and they would fix the houses up, and then they would either rent them out or they would sell them. And they made a good amount of money doing that. They made a really nice living doing that, and it just wasn't done. And she is as proud of that as she is about her ball playing, and she should be. I mean, they paved the way for the kinds of women who are entrepreneurs today.
I love reading these stories. I love historical fiction because it brings to life, it lives that would have been silent, even those that are not as miraculous as Dot's in terms of her athletic ability and accolades, but makes us invisible. And I think it's such a valuable and important service to do when writing fiction. And even though it is an act of fiction, Bright Lights of Summer, it's so anchored in fact, and it's very rich in that way. So I think it's a great offering. And I can actually see, like, I know that you're not miraculously, like, you're not Julie and that's not Diz, but to me it's like, oh, that's pretty much the way it is. In my head, I can picture that happening, though I don't see you as a massive shy blusher.
I do blush, which actually Dot loves to make me blush. It's very funny. She doesn't believe that I do, but she actually made me blush. We were on the phone the other day, and she made me blush, and she didn't believe that I had, even though I was absolutely bright red, and she didn't believe it. So when I saw her for lunch a couple days later, she said it again just to watch me blush, and I did. Yeah, right again on cue. Just like that. I am shy, and I do blush. And she says some things that would make a sailor blush sometimes. But my point is, no, I'm not Julie, and she is not Diz. In fact, Dot was so worried that people would think she was Diz. I promised her that no one would think she was Diz and she wanted to know how I was going to pull that one off. And I told her, I'm going to pull it off by putting you in the book.
Exactly.
You're your own person, and no one will think you're Diz because you're going to be you. And, I said to her at the time, Dixie's back to chewing, by the way, in case you're wondering, only because I'm not throwing the ball for her. I said to Dot at the time, I am going to be putting words in your mouth. I'm going to be channeling you, if you will. Do you want to read what you're saying ahead of time? No, I trust you, she said. And I said, Dot, really, I'm serious about this. Once it's out, and I can't do anything about it. I said, I'd really like you to read the book before it goes to print. And she refused to read it, no matter how many times I asked her, and I asked her every time we talked. She refused to read it because she said, I want to be surprised by the ending. I said, really? You don't know how it ends? And I respect that. And I am so absolutely floored that she trusts me as much as she does, and that she trusted me with Bright Lights of Summer, that she trusted me with her life and her story and her team. She allowed me to put Diz and Franny on her team. I said, Dot, I'm going to put these players on your team. Is that okay? Yeah, sure. I said, do you want to pick a position for them? Oh, put them in the outfield. Okay, I'll put them in the outfield. Dot, I'm going to, have them do some things that I know, you might not be comfortable doing yourself in the book. Uh-huh. She said her only criteria was that I not put overt sex in the book. She didn't want people thinking that everybody on the Ramblers was gay, because they were not. And she didn't want in any way to bring dishonor to her players or to people on the team. So you will notice in that book, the only people I talk about having a lesbian relationship are my fictional characters, Diz and Franny. I don't even talk about Dot having a relationship in that book. She did, but I don't talk about it because that's hers, and that's not, that wasn't the story. And I agreed to her condition that I not put any overt sex in the book.
I know, I was so disappointed, but I actually was thinking, I kept on wanting it. I'm so bad. I was like, I want to see it.
Deal.
I want to see it, but then I was thinking, well, Julie doesn't know Diz that well, and she's going to tell her these stories, but she's not going to give her the bucket chicka wow wow moments.
Well, you know what? First of all, that goes back to a point we were making a little bit earlier that I want to make. I am so much closer to Dot than Julie was to Diz, all along. Except, more towards the end, Julie gets much closer to Diz. But trust me when I tell you that Dot and I have been very close for a long time now. Which sets my relationship with her apart from Diz and Julie, among other things. But the sense of humor that they have between them, actually, our sense of humor is a little deeper than that. Mm-hmm. We make a little more fun of each other than Diz and Julie did. But in terms of the sex, for the longest time, I wanted to write this book, and Dot kept telling me I needed to wait until she was gone. She wouldn't let me write it while she was here. And I kept saying to her, honey, I really need you to write this book. I need your help to write this book. Please let me write this book now while you're here. No. And finally, I found out why it was she was so reluctant to let me write it. And it was because she's been reading all my books all along, and, she sees the sex in my books, and she was afraid that I was going to put that in the book. It was all about the sex. And I finally said to her, that's the issue? That's why for 3 years now you haven't let me write this book? Listen, honey, I promise you, if I give you my word of honor that I will not put any overt sex in this book, can I please, please, please write this book right now? And she said, okay, you can write it. And, the truth of the matter is, now having done it, I spent more time researching Bright Lights of Summer than I have ever spent researching anything I've done. I spent a full year researching this book. And as you brought up earlier, it was very difficult to come by the information. It is not easily found. It is not easily available. And a lot of it has been lost forever. And so to find all of the pieces I needed to find for the book in terms of the research, the historical research for the games and the trips and all of that took a lot of work. And if Dot did not have everything that she has in her house, I would not have been able to do it. And I would not have been able to find it in her house. Trust me when I tell you, I would not have been able to find it in her house without Dot, finding it for me. And so as a result, I can tell you that had Dot not agreed to let me write Bright Lights of Summer while she was alive, I would not have been able to write this book. I would have been able to write a different book about it maybe, but not this book. I could never have done it without her. And she knows that.
You had my little girl dream, which was to go through a house and go into all these boxes and nooks and crannies and find stories and mementos and what. I was like, that was what I used to go around my house when I was a little girl. I'll go in these drawers and I'll look under this bed and I'll go, because I'll find
something great.
I'll find some treasure, some mystery, some letters. Didn't find any.
No?
But it was still my dream.
Oh, there you go. I'll take you over to Dot's house and you can have a look around.
Oh my God. She just seems so wonderful.
If you find a snake, don't tell me.
I won't tell you about the snake. I'll consider it your Indiana Jones eccentricity of no snakes, please.
No snakes, please. No snakes, no scorpions, no black widows. I have a long list if you'd really like to hear it.
And this is, I'm going back to your Woofers book, and what I love was the rules of the game. Throw balls, yell things. Hit ball, yell things. Catch ball, yell things. Run fast, yell things. Turn left, yell things. Go home, yell things. Eat lots of great stuff you never get to have.
Well, I mean, if you were a dog and watching someone watch softball, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Exactly what it looks like.
My father had taken me to, he had taken the whole family to a baseball game, and I wasn't into it, but he was surprised at how many snacks I was able to pack away into my tiny little girl body.
Well done, you.
Yes, so I was like, the dogs are just like me. I got lots of treats.
Worked out well. I had a hell of a stomachache afterward, but boy, it felt good.
I was like Cracker Jacks and, hot dogs and French fries and
ice cream and cotton candy. And
my poor father was going broke because you know how it is in New York.
Yes, I do know how it is in New York, as a matter of fact. Expensive is the answer to that. A ball game was clearly wasted on you. Your father should have taken me.
Exactly. Do you know, I was never much, and I liked being a swimmer. I liked playing rugby, but I was never much about watching a game unless I knew personally the people in it. So when my brother was playing high school football, I was into it because I knew the guys on the field. But when I didn't know them, and I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I understand that.
But one thing that popped up on Facebook, and I know it's like a non sequitur in some ways, but we're talking about body image and how that had come up in one of our previous interviews, and it still kind of remains in the forefront of my mind, because personally, which is, my body is very changed and different than it was when I was in my early 20s, where it's like very sprightly, very, very fit and slender. And I find I'm much more confident in my own skin now than I was when, I guess at that sprightly, thin, athletic, tall way, and I feel better about myself and sexier, and I'm happier with my body than I was back then. And it mostly is it's because what you see on TV, how you're conditioned to look at your body and look at other women as competitors rather than comrades. So that still is a big impact. So it's interesting, to see that in play in Facebook, where the woman was really glad that we brought it up and kind of talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, body image wasn't driven so much by external things, by images on television. It was driven by the fact that I had a very sexually abusive childhood, and I spent a lot of time being told how ugly I was, how no one would ever want me, how unattractive I was. And, when someone tells you that in your formative years enough times, you believe it. You come to believe it. And, interestingly to me, no matter what the external appearance is, there's an internal perception that is, sort of disconnected from what might actually physically be true. And I think that is true for many, many women. I think that we all come at it from different perspectives, and for different reasons, potentially, we get to this point where body image is a problem. But it's a pervasive problem, and it's a shame. One of the things that I will tell you from a spiritual point of view is we are all souls having a human experience. We're not humans having a soulful experience. We are souls having a human experience. The human body is just that. It's a vessel. It's a vehicle, if you will. And if we can try to look at it more from that perspective and recognize that we are not, any of us really, what we see in the mirror, what we are is what's in our hearts, what's in our souls. That's who we are in spiritual truth. In reality, that's who we are. I don't look at people and make judgments based on what their physical appearance is, because that's only a piece of it. That's the smallest piece of who someone really, truly is. And I think that so many of us want to be seen for who we truly are and not for what we see in the mirror or for what others perceive us to be. Obviously the physical body is the first thing anyone sees. And so, you have a mental picture in your mind, you see a snapshot of a person, and, that is a piece of information. But wouldn't it be just wonderful if that was only a piece of information that we thought about, as opposed to, I'm going to dismiss that person because that person, the way that person looks makes me feel uncomfortable about my own body, or vice versa. Whatever it is, as women, as people, I would really love it if we could just all, sort of get to this point where we recognize that we're souls having human experiences, and look deeper, look in someone's eyes, look in their soul, and see who they are, and live that way instead of living from the outside in. Let's live from the inside out, is what I would say. And when I created Rebecca in All That Lies Within, which was the specific character that the woman on Facebook was referencing, she was very glad that I had brought in a character who had a lot of body image issues as a child. She was chubby. She didn't fit in. She got bullied in high school. She got bullied all throughout her childhood. She grew up and she became, she got fit, and she, took control of her physical body that way and was able to get to that place. Not everybody can, but she did. But she still carried with her the perceptions of that child that she was, and all the messages that she internalized over time. And I felt it really important to create a character like that. And throughout all of my books, I try to create characters like that who are real and, deal with real issues that we all face. And, in my fiction, whether it's Bright Lights of Summer or whether it's All That Lies Within or whatever I'm writing in between, I try very hard to give people messages where they can feel better about themselves, where they can see images of themselves and maybe change their own perceptions of who they are and what they are, or how other people see them. To me, that's very, very important. And so I'm really glad that she brought that point up, because to me, I want always to leave readers feeling better about themselves than they did when they started the book. that's one of my goals. And, they will take away from my writing whatever it is they will, but I sincerely hope that there's something there that uplifts everybody along the way. And, I was thinking about it after I read that comment today, and I was thinking, I didn't do that just with Rebecca. If you actually go back, and I know that you've read a fair number of my novels, if you go back and you start looking at things like Kate and Jay had body image issues too. She was a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. She had body image issues. And she and Kate actually talked about that throughout the series. And, they'll probably continue to talk about that because I'm about to write another one for them. I think... yes, so much of fiction today is about, beautiful, glamorous women, this, that, and the other thing. And there's some degree of that because, wouldn't we all like to be beautiful and glamorous? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But, the truth is, the more I write and the longer I write, the less I fully describe my characters. I don't know if you've noticed that, but over time I have stopped, in many ways, giving them specific physical characteristics. Because I want you to see what you see in the character.
I like that. I was having this conversation with Linda K. Silva, and she's talking about how she doesn't put the pictures of characters' faces on the book because she wants her readers to decide what that character looks like.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's something to be said for that. I think that, I want everyone to see something of themselves or to see something that makes them feel good, whatever it is. That's what I want for people.
You have that, but you're also very brave when it comes to telling harder stories. Like Eyes on the Stars broke my heart in 5 million different places and made me cry my little heart out. But, people's lives were also that heartbreaking. And my ultimate thing that I chime again and again is writing, especially writing lesbian fiction, is making the invisible women visible. And some of their lives were hard and not that pretty and heartbreaking. And I was just like, oh my God.
Well, you know what? I think being truthful is important. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy in the 40s and the 50s. And, these are some of the realities. And to write it otherwise is to do an injustice to the time period, to the characters, to the real women who lived in that time period. Bright Lights of Summer is another one of those stories, not heartbreaking in the way that Eyes on the Stars was, not even close. But the point I was trying to make was not just about softball and what it was like to play softball in the 40s and all this rich history about the game, but it was also to talk very freely and deeply, for the first time, I think, about what it was like to be queer in the 1940s. It was not easy. And it was very important to me in writing this book to make that period of time realistic and truthful and honest and unflinching for, the folks in upcoming generations who don't know anything other than being able to be open and out. All these kids who are coming out in grade school and high school. I think that's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's marvelous. But it is so important to remember where we came from and the fact that it wasn't always that way. And, this is another one of those conversations that I have with Dot and her friends all the time because, we have 2 or 3 generations in these conversations, and we're talking about over time what it was like to be gay for us in different generations. Dot talks to the late 30s and the early 40s and the 50s, and, I sit with some of her softball friends who talk about what it was like in the 50s and the 60s and the 40s. And, I can talk to what it was like to be in the 70s and the 80s and, where you were still going into gay bars, looking both ways. The gay bars had no signage on them. You had to know where you were going. The windows were all blacked out so you couldn't see in or out. And when you walked out of those bars, you walked out in groups because you were afraid that you would get your head bashed in. That was our reality. And the reality for Dot was even more than that. They didn't go to gay bars. They didn't do that. They created their own spaces. And, they hung in tight little groups and they went off to, parks and things like that. And, as Dot is frequently telling me, we were lucky if we could steal a kiss somewhere. We all lived at home with our parents or, we found moments here or there, but it wasn't, open and easy like it is now. You could never have had a life like that. And so, in writing Bright Lights of Summer, I really, really wanted to talk about what it was like to be queer in the 1940s and the price that the women paid for that and the reality of how difficult it truly was. and how isolating it was. In the world of softball, it might have been a little bit easier than in other parts of life because, you're playing softball, you're together with a lot of other women. There's a chance, the higher percentages work here for athletes. But, it's why I created the book the way I did. And some of the things, I don't want to give too much away, but it's why some of the things in the book happened the way they do. I wanted it to be true. I wanted it to be authentic. And I wanted to preserve that piece of history as truthfully as I could for future generations. Because the fact is, I tried to write some of that story before about what it was like to be queer in the 1940s. And when I wrote Eyes on the Stars, I tried to get, some lesbians from that time period to talk about it. And I could not get them to talk about it. Even though I knew they were gay, they knew they were gay. I was interviewing them. They would not talk about it. Dot is the first person of that generation that I have ever spoken to who will talk about it openly. Wow. And that is what makes it so incredibly important and valuable. And that's why I insisted that I write the book while she was alive, so that I could tell the story. And I told it, even then, I had to tell it through my fictional characters because I wasn't going to, put Dot or any of her friends in that position. Mm-hmm. But I was able, with the fictional characters, to tell a great deal of truth.
Do you have any future historicals on the horizon?
I do, actually. It's not going to be the next thing I write. The thing I'm going to write now is the next in the Kate and Jay series. Mm-hmm.
I asked because we're at the end of our time together, so I want to be forward-looking and see what's...
Already.
I know.
Yeah, so right now I'm about to sit down and write the next in the Kate and Jay story, which people have been asking me for many, many years now. 10 years they've been asking for this book. So I think maybe it's time. And then after that, and don't hold me to it, but I have this really incredible World War II spy story going on in my head. And this thing is going to be, it's so incredible. I'm so jazzed about it. I can't wait to get to it. And I will get to it at some point in the near future. But, right now I'm going to work on the Kate and Jay story. I've got Extra Innings. The documentary is going to be out in the next month or two. We're going to do some film festivals, hopefully, with that movie, which is actually Dot's real story. And, part of that is the September 20th event that we did, the interview that I did with her, and it's supplemented by very rare archival video footage from the 1940s of Ricky and some of the other players as they were playing professional ball, and a lot of really great images, still photos, and I've narrated the front end and the back end. I sent that off the other day, so we're almost done. So I'm thinking we're going to do some film festivals with that, and then I am going to make it available via DVD and also via streaming video media, Vimeo and iTunes and so on and so forth, so that everybody can have access to this. And it's very important to me that we get this done so that we do preserve this piece of history. That's what's on my horizon right now, and hopefully, a movie or two along the way.
Yay! I always love my time with you, Lynn.
I love my time with you. I'm sorry, we got off track a little bit. Well, we didn't really. We didn't.
We circled like the beautiful birds we are.
Exactly. We got there in the end, I think.
Yes, we did.
I hope nobody will be disappointed by the topics we discussed. Let me put it to you that way.
I don't think so. And tough nuggies if they don't like it.
It's my show. I'll do it any way I want.
Precisely.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for having me, Liz. I love talking to you. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, I love it too.